Aloha and welcome to Knitted Paradise, where the needles are clicking and the yarn is squishy. My name is Lucia, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Pearl of the Pacific. Today is Sunday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And this is episode 109. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all having a very nice day. It's snowing here, which is lovely. I'm very excited about the snow. It finally feels like winter. And yeah, it's been a pretty good day. We had choir this morning, and then my husband had to go to work, and now I'm just home talking to all of you and hopefully winding up some yarn for some new projects, because this week has been finishing things on a spree kind of, and I haven't had time to wind new yarn. I keep like finishing a project and then being like, oh, I need a new sock project, and so I've just been grabbing whatever's been wound. So that's really what's been knit on. Excuse me. And so I'm like, oh, I need to wind more yarn so I have more options. Luckily, I've had a few things wound for socks and that have already been planned, which is nice because I have a lot of things and I'm like, oh, I know that's going to be a shawl, or I know it's, but things that are easy to start on the go, like socks are pretty easy for me to start on the go. So those are easy to kind of take with me. But I'm going to have a yarn winding party this afternoon in front of the fireplace, and it's going to be glorious. So yeah, it's been really cold here. I have a fire going in the fireplace in the other room. If you have been watching for a while, you'll remember that I used to record in front of the fireplace. I'm a little sad that I'm not recording in front of the fireplace. I almost thought about moving back over there today because it's so cold. I'm wearing 2 layers of pants, hand knit socks, plus house slippers, which often get kind of warm for me. And then like a long sleeve shirt, a sweater, and a fleece. It's a little chilly. So I'm going to go sit in front of the fire pretty soon and warm up. But it's nice and cozy, right? The cat has been kind of glued to my lap. Right now he's in quote-unquote kitty jail, which is the bathroom, so that I can let the bird out so that she doesn't squawk too much while I'm recording. So with all that rambling in the beginning, let's get started. Below the conch shell, we still have the blue and white knit along going on, so enter your blue and white things, blue and or white things. I've been loving seeing everyone's contributions, and it's all in one thread. There's chatter, progress pictures, and finished object pictures. At the end, what I'll probably do is go through and pull out the names of the people who have finished things. You can enter as many times as you want. They don't have to be knit. It can be crocheted, spun, all sorts of things. And as long as it's, fiber related. And then I will pull 2 winners from that, and one will win this skein. Where did it go? Here it is. It's from Holiday Yarns, and it's a DK weight, and it's the colorway is Nora's Water Dragon. That's really blown out. I'm not sure if you can see that at all. There you go. Anyway, so this I pulled from my stash, and it's a beautiful, I know the colors are really washed out, but it's a beautiful teal with some like darker seafoamy kind of green, and then grays in there. And it's lovely and squishy. And it's their super sheep. So it's 260 yards of 100% superwash merino. Ta-da! And I bought it for a project a while ago, and I never made it into that thing, and so I'm going to rehome it. It's beautiful and I love it. It's burning a hole in my stash, as they say. So that's going to be the yarny prize. And if you've noticed, I brought out some of my stash here. I've moved some of the books down into this cupboard down here because there was some space. And I brought out some of my stash so that it's out and pretty for you all to look at. So, all right, the other announcement is that I will be at the Knitting Pipeline Retreat at the end of February, so February 26th and 27th in Washington, Illinois. So if you are going, please let me know and or come find me. I will be there. I did finally figure out a ride down. I actually now have multiple options for rides down. So I'm still working at the details of that, but I will be going down Friday and coming back most likely Saturday. There's a possibility I might come back Sunday. We'll see. But at least I got my ride figured out, which was kind of the big stressor. But like, I can't take the car away from my husband. So anyway, on the island, I have some socks. I started a new pair of socks this week because I finished some socks. And these I chose to do 2 at a time. I'm going to try it again and see how it goes. And these are going to be the Owlie socks by, what was my shows? Julie Elswick Schoppel-Wolle? I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. The yarn is Done Roving Yarns Frolicking Feet. And the colorway is Wild Blue Yonder. It is lovely shades of blues and purples, all kinds of shades of blues and purples, which I love. And these are going to be for my neighbor of my parents, who's kind of like my aunt. And I chose not to do the owls because there's a lovely owl cable. I chose it not to do on the feet just because I was worried about it being uncomfortable in shoes. And because you do add beads to the eyes for the owls, and I was like, that's not going to work in shoes. I think in the pattern she doesn't add them on the foot. It's a beautiful pattern, and I had started socks out of this yarn for that pattern a long time ago, and then for some reason ripped them out. I don't know why. But I have the beads. They're the purple little seed beads. I don't think I've ever actually successfully used beads on a project before. So this is going to be interesting. I'm not one to normally use beads on a project, but I'll probably just do a few owls here and there on the legs. So that's happening. And so I got but this was already wound. That was really it. I'm like, I'm just going to wind it, take it with me. And I was like, I don't have time to print out and look at the chart for the foot. I think it's also written top down, and now I'm doing it toe up, which is pretty usual for me, so I might have to find another owl pattern or figure it out to do it toe up. We'll see. Yeah, that's the only thing that's on the needles right now. It's kind of sad and scary. I need to wind some more yarn so I can start some more things, or just sit down. There's a few things that are wound. They just need me to concentrate while I start them, which can't always happen. So I finished some things this week, of course, because I only have that on the needles. So, here, I'll start with my Sesame Street socks. And ta-da! So these are the Sesame Street mini skein sets from another Crafty girl. And they're called the Come Play With Me. She sold them. I think she might still have some. They're not in her shop right now, but she might have them at certain shows and things. But they're called Come Play With Me, and she sells them in sets of 7. So this is, they're not by set by any means. They're just all mixed up. But yeah, these are done and blocked. Ta-da! And I'm really happy with them. I know I say that about everything, but I am. They're a little short, but I realized when I was blocking these, I blocked them. I have 2 sets of blockers like this, one in a size small and one in a size medium. And I'm really the only one who uses a size small because I have tiny feet. But why wear a size 7? It's not that tiny. Anyway, I blocked them on the size medium unknowingly. I was like, wow, these are really small. I only did 60 stitches around. So I was like, wow, these are really small. I tried them on and they fit. It was really weirding me out until I went to block another pair and realized that this pair was on the mediums. Because I'm like, wait, why do these feel smaller than the other ones? And then so I switched them. And that's why these are a little baggy on here. But that's probably good because it stretched them out a little bit. So I haven't actually tried them on since I've been wanting to keep them nice and pristine. So I think I talked about this last time, but I did 7 rows of each of the minis and then 2 rows of the white, which is Cascade Heritage in their white. I don't really remember what colorway. But yeah, and then just did some 2x2 ribbing at the top and Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. And yeah, just a normal fish lips kiss heel. Yeah, I didn't actually do a gusset, which is okay. It worked out. So we'll see. I feel like I told you all of this last week. I don't think I finished these last week. I think I finished them this week. But it was like I finished them very early on this week. I don't remember. Sorry, guys. I know you've seen these before because I was working on them last time, but I'm sorry if I showed them to you finished. I've totally forgotten. Oh well, then you get to see them again. Aren't they pretty? I love them. Everyone loves them. When I was taking them with me to knit them places, and people were like, oh, those are pretty. They are really pretty. I'm super in love with them. And they'll go with everything, which I love. So yeah, I'm going to take these to the Knitting Pipeline retreat because Sarah's going to be there. Yay! So I'm really excited to hang out with Sarah, who is the dyer behind Another Crafty Girl. We're gonna bring board games and play lots of board games, including sheepy themed board games, because I have a few of those. Oh my gosh, so Knitting Pipeline is in 2 weeks? I keep thinking it's next weekend. It's not next weekend. I want it to be next weekend, but it's not. It's in 2 weeks, and I'm already contemplating getting out my suitcase and starting to pack. This is how much I'm looking forward to it. It's a little insane. I'm like, oh, I gotta remember to bring this, and I gotta remember to bring that, and now I'm like, oh, I gotta bring the board games. So I'm getting really excited. I might just pack, like, today. I mean, it's only a 2-day retreat. It's just Friday and Saturday. So I'm like, all right, I've got just a few knitting-related t-shirts to wear, so I'll bring those. I'll wear some knitted sweaters because it's gonna be chilly. And some knitted hats and things. It's the coordination now that we gotta get going. So anyway, I digress. Let's talk about my other finished object, which, we'll talk about this one first. I've finished 3 things, but this one's in my lap, and I want to show it to you. So I finished the Secret Garden shawl. Ta-da! This is the pattern by Alana Dakos, and she designed it for the Little Skein and the Big Wool Secret Garden kit. And it is beautiful, and I love it. As soon as she showed a picture on Instagram, I was like, oh my god, I need that. So I got it, and the yarn is, Western Sky Knits in their Magnolia sock, which is an MCN, in the Misselthwaite Manor colorway. Ta-da! And it's pretty big. I have a little bit of yarn left over. I did an extra, this is the swatch that I started with, and then the rest of the yarn is wound around it. I didn't actually cut the swatch in case that I needed to use it. I often do that. I washed it and blocked it, but I'll keep it attached to the cake so that if I need to use it at the end, I can. So that's what happened. And I didn't actually need to use it. I was getting a little paranoid at the end. So this is unblocked. I just finished it last night. And yeah, I had some confusion with the directions at the end. I think I did the border wrong, I realized. It's supposed to be, this garter border is supposed to be much thicker. I think you're supposed to increase every, how big is it? Oh, it's about my wingspan. I'm looking at it. You're supposed to increase every 4 rows, and I think I increased every 8. Because I was like, oh yeah, every 4 purl bumps, which is 8 rows. So it's not nearly as wide, as wide this way as it should be, but it worked out. But then when I was reading the setup row for the border chart, it was completely wrong for me. I mean, I'm sure it was right. The pattern's fine, but it wasn't gonna work. So I just knit the next row in the previous pattern. I mean, the previous chart, for all of this, and then went on to the next chart, and that seemed to work. I made some mistake somewhere along the line and stitch counts got funky, but whatever, it worked. In the end, I made it work. So I'm excited to block that this afternoon and see how it turns out. I just used, because it looked like I wasn't gonna have a whole lot of yarn, I just used the normal knit a stitch, pull the other one over, knit the next stitch, pull the previous one over, like all the way across. So it's not stretchy at all. So I'm going to see how it is when I block it, and I may end up ripping it out and doing a stretchier bind off, because now I know that I have tons of yarn that I can do like Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. All right, so that is finished, and I'm very excited. I did have another problem where I was knitting on it the other night and the needle broke. I think I still have it in here. It's a wooden needle, and it just broke off like right at the base. This is right where it joins. I have the other half of it. Here it is. So you can see it broke off right there at the base of the needle. And I wasn't doing this with it. I was pulling it this way, like trying to pull it out from the stitches, and it broke. It was really bizarre. Anyway, luckily I had another set of size 3s. I love these needles, so I'm going to contact the maker and see if I can get another set or a replacement set, because they're really nice. They twist on the cable, and they're really nice. So I was really sad about that. But I had another set of 3s in the shawl design that I'm testing for myself, and I hadn't gotten very far. Really, I hadn't gotten more than I showed you last time, which was like this tiny little thing. I needed to rip it back, and I just haven't had the chance to do that. So maybe I'll do that today. Today's going to be like a winding and casting on, setting up kind of party by the fire because it's cold. So I just took these out of it because I have to rip it back anyway. Luckily they were size 3, and it was a longer cable, so that was kind of nice to stretch this out a little bit more, and just finished it up. But I was like, now I have to finish it because I need to get started on that shawl. So then I was like, I need these needles back. So ta-da, it's finally done. I'm really excited about that. That's been on the needles for a long time, so that felt really good. The other thing I finished was a pair of Ludmilla socks, which you never saw and never will see in person. I have a picture I'll show you. The yarn was already wound, so I picked it up and took it to work one day to start. And I had an all-day meeting this week, during which I knit pretty much an entire sock, and I think like the leg of the other sock. I went in with the foot and a toe done, and I came out of the meeting with like a whole, like most of the leg on one, and I think I did the other leg. So they were at the same point. I think I may have done like one more repeat or 2 more repeats of the pattern, and then I didn't do the picot hem because she didn't want that, but I did a ribbed cuff, and they were done the next day. So yay for all day meetings, I guess. Anyway, so I knit those out of some yarn that was sent to me that I showed a few weeks ago, that the person I knit the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted socks for asked me if I could knit her another pair. She would send me the yarn, and so she sent me the yarn, and that was it. So I finished them and sent them off to her. That's why I don't have them. But I was going to the post office anyway because I had time and I had the car, and to mail off the socks for my aunt. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna send them. So I'm sorry I don't have them show you. I'll insert a picture here. I hope. We'll see if I can figure that out. And so those were out of Schoppel-Wolle in their Das Paar colorway, or Das Paar base in color 2207. And it's a self-patterning yarn. It's the same company that makes Zauberball. I looked that up. I remember when I showed you the yarn, it's this green and blue yarn. And when I showed it to you, I said I couldn't find the tag. Well, the tag was in the bag. I just didn't look very hard. So she did send the tag, so thank you. If you look on my project page, I have pictures and links, and it's all set up. I'm not very good about the notes section, but I'm very good about linking the yarn and the pattern name and things like that. So they turned out really cool. I was really afraid that the self-patterning yarn would interfere with the Ludmilla pattern, and it didn't. It looked glorious on the front of the sock because it's a feather and fan, so it's a self-striping, in other words. And what is this? People and their dogs. Anyway, sorry. But the way the pattern, it instead of, you know how self-striping, if you don't have a pattern, just go straight across, but the feather and fan made it like go up in the middle and then kind of go like this. It was really cool. So I'll insert some pictures here so you can see how it looks, but I'm really, really happy with how they turned out. It was really exciting. It's hard to capture that yarn in pictures without, because it was kind of dark. In real life, it's really cool, and it's really this like bright green and deep blues and really cool. So that's it for set sale from the mainland. I got some yarn. I got my first skein of Julianna's Fibre, and I was watching her podcast. She was showing this yarn. It's a continuum gradient, the Lucid Dream sock yarn, and the colorway is I Smell Snow. And she was showing some socks that she's knitting out of this. I was like, oh, I need that in my life. So I got some. And it's a self-striping, but it's a gradient striping. So it starts, I don't know what it starts with. I'll see when I wind up the skein today. But it's like this tonal blues, and then it gradiates into these whites with flecks of color. Like you can see a little bit. Well, the colors are really funky today because it's kind of dark out. And but these flecks of like, it's almost like yellow, and I think there's a little bit of like pinks and purples, and they're very, very faint. It's very faint, which I love. And then it gradiates back into the blue. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. Because it's funny, you look at this and you're like, that is not, it does not, it looks like a variegated, but it is not. It's not, my friend. It's going to be so pretty. So these are going to be socks for me. And I think I'm just going to do them plain. I know that's really weird for me to say, but I'm going to do them plain because I really just, I love the gradient, and I really just want that to shine. So I'm really excited about this. And funny story about this, the colorway is called I Smell Snow. And the day it came in the mail, I left for work. I looked out my window and I'm like, oh, it wasn't cold, but it's cold, it's winter. But I'm like, oh, it's not really cold. And it didn't look, it wasn't snowing. It's like, oh, I'll wear my like Oxford shoes. And they were, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. It'll be fine. And when I walked out my back door, it was flurries. And I'm like, oh, these aren't too bad. It's like really, really light flurries. And as I got on the train, and then as I was heading north, it started getting whiter and whiter and whiter until I got to work, which is like 4 miles north, snowing, like full on snowing. It was crazy. So where did this come from? We are by the lake, so it was probably a lake effect. Freakish snow, but it was crazy. And then half an hour later, it was done. It was nuts. And so I just thought it was funny that the day this came in the mail, it snowed. And then it, like, by the end of the day, it was kind of gone. But the next day, it snowed some more. And then I think it snowed a little bit the other day. And then it's snowing today. We may have gotten like an inch. It's not a whole lot. I wish it was more, but that's okay. But I just thought it was funny that I Smell Snow yarn and it snowed. So, Julianna, your yarn brought some snow, so that was really exciting. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about was in the Flora and Fauna section, I wanted to share a slight history of knitting needles. I thought this would be interesting. I was wondering about this myself, and I thought, I'm just going to go look it up. So I found a link, which I will put in the show notes. And I only looked at this one, so I probably should have cross-referenced it a little bit, but this is what I learned from that link, because I was wondering about these things. Knitting needles originally came from the Middle East, and they were all steel, which I thought was interesting. And so they were originally metal and straight, like long, straight needles. And they were forged like in a blacksmith shop. with other blacksmithy things. And because you'd think wooden ones would have come first, but no, it was metal needles came first. And they had straight needles and what we now call DPNs. And so that you could knit things in the round. And most things that were knitted were kind of smaller things. Hats and stockings and mittens and things like that. And this, I mean, sweaters would have had to be knit in pieces because unless you had really, really long DPNs, it'd be hard to knit something in the round. But sweaters were probably knit in pieces. And wooden ones came later, like I forget when wooden ones came about. But those were later, and in about the 1900s. So the metal ones were kind of in the 1800s. 1900s is when circular needles started making an appearance. And it took quite a while for them to gain popularity because people were so used to knitting with straight needles that it was hard for people to switch over. Of course, now I think we all knit with circular needles for the most part, circular needles or DPNs, kind of depending. And so now they're super popular and you can get them everywhere. But as we've had advancements in technology about, like plastics and flexible materials that are strong that you can attach to knitting needle, like the ends of needles, our attachment methods have gotten better because originally those attachments were not as nice as they are today. I forget exactly what they said about them, but they were not as nice. And yeah, I mean, now they're available in all kinds of woods and ivory. They were made out of ivory for a little while in certain places in the world because that was a strong material that you could make knitting needles out of. So that is a brief history of knitting needles that I found very intriguing. Feel free to go look up more and correct me or find new things if you feel so inclined. I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, I don't know, how old are knitting needles? So apparently back in the 1800s, people in the Middle East, and then they kind of like moved, west, I guess, as you would say. I just thought that was really cool. I know, like, knitting was a big thing back in the day because that's how everyone made their own clothes. Like, buying clothes in a store wasn't really a thing. I mean, you could, but you'd have a tailor make it for you. Like, you'd go in and get measured and they would make your clothes for you. Which I'm kind of sad we don't do that anymore. It's really hard to find clothes that really fit you, that don't need some sort of alteration. I mean, I'm really short, so finding pairs of pants that fit, because proportionally my torso is really long and my legs are really short. So finding pants that fit, that aren't really long, is really hard. So I often will hem pants, or even petite pants are even sometimes too long. It's ridiculous. Or they won't fit in the top. They think it's weird because either, people who are tall have a really hard time finding pants and people who are short have a really hard time finding pants. I'm like, well, you just got to be average. I guess they just make pants for average people. I mean, companies have been getting better and better about it, but it's still nice to be able to make your own clothes. It is. I was at the chiropractor the other day and he was commenting on my hat matching my sweater, which then matched my socks, and it was always the Batgirl hat, which I have the Batgirl socks to match it, and then I was wearing, I think, a yellow sweater that I have, but I also have a Knit Circus gradient shawl, the Pebble Beach shawl that goes from the yellow to the purple at the edge, which matches the Batgirl colors. And I was commenting, I'm like, well, it helps. He's like, you're very matchy-matchy today. I'm like, well, it helps when you make your own clothes. You can be very coordinated, and I like to be very coordinated, so I like making my own clothes. It's very easy to coordinate when you just make them yourself, because then you don't have to search in many, many stores to find exactly what you want. So with that, I will sign off. I hope you have a good week. I'm sorry they've been kind of short. Hopefully next week I will have more to talk about because I will have more projects. But I figured it's better to get a podcast out and share about the projects that I do have on the needles. It's quality more than quantity. Like, I don't want to have a bazillion things going at the same time just to have things to show you. You know, this is my life. This is what I have time to knit. I happen to be very lucky and be able to knit during work meetings. And I was even facilitating one of the discussions, actually like all day discussions at this meeting. And everyone kind of knows, it's like a thing at my organization that I knit. Like, one person was commenting because I was sitting down like reading the discussion topics and things like that, and I was like, this is, I think, the longest time I've seen you not knitting. And it was really not very long, but it's kind of known all over the place that I'm like the knitter. So for me to knit while facilitating wasn't a big issue, which is really great for me. And I knit oftentimes at work in the afternoons when we're all working together and I'm not currently doing anything. So I'm very, very lucky that my office mates put up with me and all my knitting, and they like to make funny comments about it too. So I'll put up with it, you know, they let me knit, they can make all the funny comments they want. All right, well, I'm gonna go sit by the fire and put the bird away so I can let the poor kitty out of kitty jail. This is the new thing that I've started. The bird's out in the other room. She doesn't make as much noise because I can also shut the door. But then I have to put the cat away in kitty jail. But it seems to work out for the podcast, so I'm sorry you don't get to see the cat, or the bird really, who's hanging out kind of upside down on the curtain in there. It's kind of funny. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. So I will say goodbye. Hope you all have a good week, and I'm keeping warm and knitting a lot. All right, see you. Bye.